Last chapter, chapter 25. Another frenzy of mechanical rage outside told him that Welch was still at the wheel. Good, perhaps he was under orders to return without delay. Dixon had no feelings or thoughts beyond the immediate situation. He heard Christine's steps approaching and tried to press himself back into the pillar. Her feet took a few paces on the boards of the entrance. She came into view 4 or 5 feet away, turned her head and saw him at once. Her face broke into a smile of what seemed to him pure affection. "You got my message in," she said. She looked ridiculously pretty. "Come here, Christine, quickly." He drew her into the shelter of his pillar. "Just a minute." She stared about her and then at him. "But we ought to be running up onto the platform. My train's nearly due. Your train's gone. You have to wait for the next, at least the next. The clock says I got 1 more minute. I can't just know it's gone, I tell you. It was at 1:40. It couldn't have done. It couldn't did. I asked the man, but Mr. Welch said it went at 1:50. Or he did he? That explains everything. He was wrong about that, you see." "Are you sure? Why are we hiding? Why are we hiding?" Ignoring her, his hand unnoticed on her arm, Dixon leaned carefully past her. Welch was now broadside on across the main exit from the square. "Right, well, we'll just give the bloody old fool time to get clear, and then we'll go and have a drink. He will begin with an octuple whiskey. You've had lunch, I suppose." "Yes, but I could hardly eat a thing. Not like you that. Well, I haven't had any, so we'll have some together. I know a hotel not far from here. I used to go there with Margaret in the old days." They left Christine's case in the luggage office and walked down into the square. "A good thing old Welch didn't insist on putting you on the train," Dixon said. "Yes, actually I was the one who insisted. I don't blame you." Dixon's physical discomfort grew steadily at the thought of Christine's news, now nearing revelation. He wanted to bet himself it would be bad so that he might stand a chance of it being good. His head and an inaccessible part of his back itched. "I wanted to get away as quickly as I could from the whole bunch of them. I couldn't bear any of them for another moment. A fresh one arrived last night." "A fresh one?" "Yes, Mitchell or some such name." "Oh, I know. You mean Michelle?" "Do I? I picked the first train I could get." "What's happened that you wanted to tell me?" He tried to force his spirits down to accept nothing but unexpected and very nasty nastiness. She looked at him, and he again noticed that the whites of her eyes were very light blue. "I finished with Bertrand." She spoke as if a household detergent that had proved unsatisfactory. "Why, for good?" "Yes. Do you want to hear about it? Come on. You remember me and Carol Goldsmith leaving your lecture in the middle yesterday?" Dixon understood and felt breathless. "I know. She told you something, didn't she?" "I know what she told you." They stopped walking involuntarily. Dixon put out his tongue at an old woman who was staring at them. Christine said, "You knew about Bertrand and her all the time, didn't you?" "I knew you did." She looked as if she were going to laugh. "Yes. What made her tell you?" "Why didn't you tell me?" "I couldn't. It wouldn't have done me any good." "What made Carol tell you?" "She hated him for taking her for granted. I didn't mind what he'd done before he started going about with me, but it was wrong of him to try to keep us both on a string, Carol and me. She said he asked her to come away with him the night we all went to the theater. He was quite sure she would. She said she began by hating me, and then she saw the way he was treating me, things like the way he behaved at the sherry thing. Then she saw he was the one to blame, not me." She stood with her shoulders a little hunched, saying all this quickly and with embarrassment, her back to a shop window full of brassieres, corsets, and suspender belts. The lowered blind shadowed her face as she looked almost slyly at him, possibly to see whether she said enough to satisfy her curiosity. A bit noble over her, wasn't it? Bertrand won't look at her after this. Oh, she doesn't want him too, I gather. Well, I sort of gathered from what she said that there's someone else in the background now. I don't know who. Dixon was pretty sure he did. The last thread was untangled. He took Christine's arm and walked off with her. "That's enough," he said. There's a lot more about what he told her about later. A layer of happiness suffused Dixon's face. He said, "I think you might like to hear this. I'm going to have nothing more to do with Margaret. Something's come up, never mind what for now, which means I needn't bother you with her anymore." "What, you mean you're absolutely—" "I'll tell you all about it later, I promise. Don't let's think about it now." "All right, but is it genuine, isn't it?" "But it's genuine, isn't it?" "Of course, perfectly genuine." "Well then, in that case, that's right. Tell me, what are you going to do this afternoon? I suppose I shall have to go back to London, shan't I? Do you mind if I come with you?" "What's all this?" She pulled at his arm until he looked at her. "What's going on? There's something else, isn't there? What is it?" "I've got to find somewhere to live." "Why? I thought you lived somewhere in this part of the world." "Didn't Uncle Julius tell you about my new job? For goodness sake, tell me about this property, Jim. Don't tease me." While he explained, he pronounced the names to himself: Bayswater, Knightsbridge, Notting Hill Gate, Pimlico, Belgrave Square, Wapping, Chelsea. No, not Chelsea. "I knew he had something up that sleeve of his," Christine was saying. "I didn't know that'd be it, though. I hope you'll be able to put up with him. Couldn't be better, couldn't it? I say there won't be any difficulty about you leaving your job with the university here, will there?" "No, I don't think so." "What job is it, by the way? The one he's giving you? The one Burchard thought he was going to get?" Christine began laughing noisily and blushing at the same time. Dixon laughed too. He thought what a pity it was that all his faces were designed to express rage or loathing. Now that something had happened which really deserved a face, he'd none to celebrate it with. As a kind of token, he made his sex life an ancient Roman face. Then he noticed something ahead of them and slowed in his walk. He nudged Christine. "What's the matter?" she asked. "See that car?" It was Watches, parked slightly nearer one curb than the other, outside a tea shop with green linen curtains and copper pots on the window sills. "What is it doing there?" "He's picking up Bertrand and the others, I suppose. Bertrand said he wasn't going to have lunch in the same house with me after what I said to him. Hurry up, Jim, before they come out." Just as they drew level with the shop window, the door opened and a crowd of Welches came out and blocked the pavement. One of them was clearly the effeminate riding Michelle on stage at last, just as the curtain was about to ring down. He was a tall, pale young man with long, pale hair protruding from under a pale corduroy cap. Sensing the approach of passersby, the whole group, with the natural exception of Welch himself, began automatically shifting about out of the way. Dixon squeezed Christine's arm encouragingly and walked up to them. "Excuse me," he said in a fruity, comic butler voice. On Mrs. Watch's face appeared an expression of imminent vomiting. Dixon inclined his head indulgently to her. He remembered something in a book about success making people humble, tolerant, and kind. The incident was almost closed when he saw that not only were the Welch and Bertrand both present, but Welch's fishing hat and Bertrand's beret were there too. The beret, however, was on Welch's head, the fishing hat on Bertrand's. In these guises, and standing rigid with popping eyes, as both were, they had a look of being Guide and Lytton Strachey, represented in waxworks formed by apprentice hand. Dixon drew in a breath to announce them both, and blew it all out again in a howl of laughter. His steps faltered, his body sagged as if he'd been knifed. With Christine tugging at his arm, he halted in the middle of the group, slowly doubling up like a man with a stitch, his spectacles misting over with the exertion of it. His mouth stuck ajar in the rictus of agony. He said, "He's..." The Welches withdrew and began getting into the car. Moaning, Dixon allowed Christine to lead him away up the street. The whining and clanging of Welch's self-starter began behind them, growing fainter and fainter as they walked on until it was altogether overlaid by the other noises of the town and by their own voices. Wow, so this book, this is a story about, I don't know, finding love, I guess. Getting fired from your job over love and finding a better opportunity following love, I guess. But yeah, that was the end of chapter 25. Hope you guys enjoyed. The library's gonna open soon, so I think I'll make my way over there. Peace, y'all. Hope the librarian doesn't say nothing about me ripping this. Peace, y'all.